President Poroshenko, welcome to Brussels and welcome to Euractiv.
This is a great pleasure for me to be in Euractiv because now from Ukraine and from Europe the current events demand a very active European position. So I'm happy to be here with you.
Do you think there is a risk that the European Union and the West in general would make concessions to Russia at the expense of Ukraine?
This is the purpose of Putin. This is how he wanted to destabilize the unity of European Union, just to switch to the situation business as usual. And I'm proud that my team, during my term, we don't allow Putin to be on the bilateral level, to have just a relationship. I'm proud that we have an excellent cooperation with the European Union. We keep sanction, and sanction is actually the only mechanism to keep Putin at the table of negotiation, to make a pressure on Russia to withdraw their troops from the occupied territory of Donbas and Crimea. And now we have absolutely clear demonstration after resignation of the Russian Prime Minister Medvedev, when he said that sanction of European Union, sanction of the world, sanction of the pro-Ukrainian coalition is very painful for Russia. And this is the price Russia pay for the 14,000 killed Ukrainians, including more than 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers and 11,000 Ukrainian civilians.
While you were president, the army of Ukraine became stronger. Do you think that with an army strong as it is today, pro-Russian separatists could have taken up Donbas?
Look, first of all, I'm proud that because when I was elected as a president, Ukraine has no army at all. And today we have one of the most efficient, one of the most experienced, one of the most equipped army in Europe. And we spent more than 6% of our GDP to the security and defense sector. And the results of that is that the Putin clearly understand that definitely it is very difficult for us to fight against the biggest military machine in Europe. But now we just demonstrate that Putin pay much higher price if he make a decision to continue the offensive operation on the Donbas. And I think that this is extremely important now that the whole world understand that this is the Russian aggression against sovereign and independent states, and Russia also lose thousands of their soldiers on Ukrainian battlefield. And with this situation, definitely Putin are not prepared because this is danger also for their stability inside the country.
I would like to ask you about the Minsk agreements. The problem is that Ukraine doesn't treat the Minsk agreements in the same way as Russia. And you have participated to the summits of the Normandy format. Is the Steinmeier formula a good one, or again, the Steinmeier formula can be understood in different ways?
First of all, Steinmeier formula has no relation to the Minsk agreement.
They say it's a simplification.
Never, no. Simplification, this is the Russian or Kremlin version of simplification, because Minsk agreement is very clear. First, security component, then political component. Nowhere in Europe, this is not acceptable by the standard of OSCE, that the election can be provided under the presence of the Russian occupational troops in Donbas. Why? Because this is not an election. This is the appointment by Russian occupational troops, the muppet show, which has nothing to do neither with democracy nor with the interest of the people of the occupied Donbas. So we have absolutely clear roadmap what to do. And the roadmap is clear. First, ceasefire. Unfortunately, we don't preach a ceasefire. Can you imagine that since the 1st of January, Ukraine lost 12 of our soldiers, and more than 40 were wounded? including 2 were wounded yesterday. And with that situation, can you imagine that in January year 2020, the Russian killed more Ukrainian soldiers than in the January 2019? Second step is the withdrawal of Russian troops. Very simple. We don't have any civilian conflict. We have a Russian occupational troops and Russia should take them back. Third is Russian weapons. We demand that Russia take all their tanks, all their artillery, all their multi-rocket launch system and other things which Russia bring to kill Ukrainians, take them back. Can you imagine that in the occupied Donbas they have more tank, more artillery than, for example, in Bundeswehr in Germany at all? Next is the disarm illegal arm formation. This is the bandit. Illegal. And people are not ready to provide any political activity if the bandit, illegal arm formation, under command of Russian officer, would be on the street of the occupied Donbas. And when it would be security component of that, we can start the necessary political steps. And the most important thing, we should help them to provide the political activity for Ukrainian party, for Ukrainian Central Election Commission, for international observers, for launching the political process.
In my journalistic perspective, what Russia tries to achieve is to have a constitutional entity in eastern Ukraine which would command and basically veto any major decisions of your country, including NATO membership. Am I right in my assessment?
Most important thing, that Russia don't need occupied Donbas, the same way that Russia don't need a Crimea. Russia need the whole Ukraine to restore the Soviet Union second edition. The key element for that is Russian attempt to control part of Ukrainian-Russian border. And with this situation, we make a very strong messages that we need to have the steps for the international control on the border before the election. And this can be improvement of Minsk, because if we invite under the decision of Security Council of United Nations, the peacekeepers based on this decision, and they would control the border, this can help us to stop the Russian infiltration on Ukrainian territory. And this they need to discuss, not Steinmeier formula. Because for the Steinmeier formula, first of all, Steinmeier himself, it was on in my presence in the year 2015, the year 2016, the launching of discussion this formula was done by initiative of Putin and Lavrov, and Steinmeier is not the father of this formula. This is the Kremlin scenario. But let's switch it from Steinmeier formula to the peacekeepers. This is help to bring peace on Ukrainian land.
And you need to speak to European decision makers because they need advice, don't they?
Definitely, this is the most important thing, that we should have a global coalition in support of Ukraine. The support of our American partners is very important, not only because they are leader in sanction, but they also now to play a key role for supply the lethal weapons. And I'm proud that the start this process was done by my direct negotiation with President Obama and President Trump, and we already received the radio warfare instrument, we received the anti-tank Javelin, which helped already play an important role. Because immediately when we received the anti-tank American Javelin, Russians stopped using the tank on the Donbas, because the Russian tank driver refused to participate in the combat operation because they're afraid that they would be hit by Javelin. That was even before we delivered this. But now we speak about the combat helicopter Apache, we speak about anti-aircraft missile Patriot, and with this situation, we should increase the price Russian pay if they make a decision to return to the hot period of the war. and they should pay the higher price for that. But I very much enjoyed the unity of European Union, which they demonstrate for almost 6 years as a reaction on the Russian brutal violation of law.
You mentioned American partners. This whole impeachment story, does it impact negatively on Ukraine?
Definitely yes. And I think that look, my position and position of my team is crystal clear. The discussion between Republicans and Democrats, this is the matter of Americans. And you have nothing to do with all these discussions. And with that situation, on the contrary, the aggression of Russia against Ukraine, this is the point for the whole world. And with this situation, we need to attract the whole attention. I would very much admire the characteristics which was done, the former envoy of United States in Ukraine, connected with the Russian aggression, Ambassador Kurt Volker, who has a long experience to work here in Brussels in a headquarters of NATO. He said that if Russians stop shooting, it would be peace. If Ukraine stopped shooting, would be no Ukraine. I think everybody should understand this reality, no doubt.
Thank you, President. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.